Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Daly. I spent 20 years with United Press International, most of it with the old UPI Radio Network. And my favorite assignment was going on the road producing and hosting American Montage. It was an hour-long weekly program. Now here's an edited version of one of those shows. Justin Wilson is best known as a Cajun comedian, but most people don't realize he also writes music. When the evening breeze. You may recognize this song, Bayou Serenade, as the theme for one of his Louisiana public television cooking shows, without the lyric. I met with Justin Wilson at a delightful French restaurant on the north side of Lake Pontchartrain in a little hidden bayou community called Mandeville, Louisiana. And after the wonderful meal, sat down in Justin Wilson's house. It was begun as a mansion back in the 1920s and 30s and then abandoned and now has been put back together to splendid form out in the middle of nowhere. Justin Wilson and I sat down to talk about Cajun country and his own experiences. Justin, you and I had a wonderful supper tonight. That's something I talk about sometimes. I call it supper. Most people call it dinner. But did you call it supper or dinner?
I love to call it supper because I was brought up to it when it was called supper. Dinner was at noon.
Dinner's lunch.
Well, we used to have another lunch, too. We used to have something like, the English people may call it tea. We'd have a little snack maybe in the afternoon. We'd call it a lunch.
One of the things we were talking about at supper, and particularly with the chef at the restaurant, was how trendy food is. That in big cities particularly, there are all kinds of combination restaurants and people are trying new things. There are people listening who know Cajun as an ethnic part of the U.S., which has an interesting accent and very different kind of music and very different cooking. Tell us a little bit about the Cajun ancestry, how that all started, and what the Cajun cooking lifestyle is like.
Well, first of all, I always tell people, I'm not ethnic, but y'all are, you know. Cajun cooking is creative cooking. That's actually what it is. They were forced out of Nova Scotia, out of Acadia, because they wouldn't swear allegiance to the King of England, and families were torn apart, and sweethearts were separated and all that stuff, and they came to the United States. Some of them wanted to get to Louisiana, and they did come to Louisiana. And a lot of them landed along the eastern coast. I noticed in the low country cooking, there's something Cajun influence in that, you know. But what it is creating what you have to offer. Put it together using common sense and imagination in the proper amounts, and it comes out good food. That's Cajun cooking.
Is there a temptation to think of it as a food that's going to be very spicy? Is that was my misconception before we started talking. Are there a lot of people such as myself who really don't understand what the flavors are going to be?
A great man. Most people who have never experienced real good Cajun cooking feel that way, and you had never experienced it. Like I told you when we were driving home, you were talking about crawfish, and somebody asked me about what does alligator taste like. I told them like alligator, you know, but it's seasoned with proper seasoning, and you'd love it. You really would. But it's just putting the thing. We don't season food. I don't ever say spices. We don't spice food over. We season it, and we don't season with so much hot pepper that it's going to burn your lips and maybe you won't like it. We cook it to taste good. The bottom line is it does taste good.
I know I was amazed. I had a crawfish that had been stuffed in chicken. And I was reluctant, really, I guess, to order it. The word chicken attracted me and the crawfish part didn't. But the crawfish wasn't fishy. I still can't figure out how to describe it, but it was nothing like I expected.
Well, that's the trouble with most people. Crawfish does not taste fishy. To me, it doesn't taste fishy. It tastes like crawfish, you know. But I took a job inspecting fruits and vegetables because I was reared on a farm, but I also had to sing professionally in order to make both ends. I didn't try to get them to meet. If I could get them close together, I was in good shape, you know. My father was commissioner back then. My mother was Louisiana French, a marvelous, spectacular cook. She taught me to cook when I was young, very young. About 8 years old, I started trying to help her to cook, to keep from working in the field. I'm no dummy. It was a lot easier in that kitchen than all that. And she would create dishes because my father was in politics. And people always dropped in it either at dinner time, 12 noon, or supper time. And she always could come up with something to eat. She had her signals for her children. When she'd come out there and say FHB, that meant family hold back, don't ask for seconds. Or she'd holler MIK, sure, that meant more in the kitchen, we could have more than one. And so I read with people who love to cook. My mother loved to cook. My father liked to cook. He was a pretty good cook.
When we look at the chefs in the world, by and large, they're men. And I remember Julia Child one time telling me the fact that people looked askance at her when she wanted to put together a cooking show. She and her husband had lived in Europe. He was with the State Department. They came back to Boston. And her original plan was to have a guest with her on every show, and that didn't work after a while. Was there, when you were growing up, more of an acceptance that, hey, it doesn't matter whether you're a young boy growing up or a young girl growing up, if you want to cook, if you like to cook, do it?
Well, Cajun girl and Cajun boys both like to cook. When I was brought up, I had sisters that were very good cooks, and I used my cooking to get them to eat a little bit, and then I'd talk to them about, to tell them Cajun stories to get them in a good mind, in a good shape for me to slip something into their head when they weren't looking. But cooking helped me in everything I've ever done.
Then we went to his kitchen in a mansion that was started back around Prohibition time and then abandoned and then restarted again. It's a wonderful place, and even if I gave you the directions, you probably couldn't find it. I asked Justin Wilson how he came up with all of his recipes, whether he had a staff or professional help putting together his cooking show.
Well, frankly, most of them I dream up myself. But, excuse me, I want to take a sip. This is water now, it's not wine, no.
Is that swamp water? Or is it...
Oh, yeah, came out of swamp. It's the imagination and common sense that I'm talking about. Like, I cooked something today. I had something that didn't taste good like it was. It was a smoked chicken, but they hadn't done when they smoked it. I picked it up. I thought that ought to be good. Well, it wasn't, so I made a roux. Put some onions, some bell peppers, some parsley, some garlic in there, and a little cup of wine. And I cooked that roux real good, and then I put the chicken in there, and it tasted good over pasta.
I guess there are very few things other than a souffle that if they don't turn out right, you really can't salvage by doing something to them.
Oh, you can eat a souffle. You just kind of use it like a shoe sole, you know. It would be all right.
Justin, what has the distribution been like? Of course, I know about the programs I've seen on public TV. You've seen in other countries?
Oh, yeah. Well, Canada, I get wonderful mail from there. And then I was on the Armed Services television and went all over the world. Had beautiful mail from people like that. And I'm glad because I think maybe I was helping our people. But I get beautiful mail, and it's heard in Costa Rica. Down there, places like that. It's on cable, my show is. But it amazes me that so many people like it. And I've never had anything to amaze me as much in my life as that. The little children, there's no age deal on this, you know. Little children, I thought people were putting me on when these children would run up to me and tell me, I watch your show. And I finally started asking, what did I cook? And they tell me. And older people. So it's just so wonderful, and it's been such a wonderful experience in my life to have made people happy. That's the whole idea behind it.
What are your feelings about the fact that we have become such a society of sandwich eaters? And we had such a pleasant time. You and your wife and I sitting down tonight to eat. The fellow who owns the restaurant, the chef there. There's a wonderful kind of therapy that comes with that camaraderie of not being in a hurry, of sitting down over a good meal, enjoying it, and just talking.
Well, of course there's therapy. And therapy to me in cooking, taking a long time to cook something. But what is wonderful is to sit down to a meal of good food. And you can relate your experiences in a gentlemanly-like and a ladylike manner, you know, without getting dirty about a thing in this world. And enjoy the good food. To me, that's wonderful.
Justin Wilson, I want to thank you for supper, first of all. And then I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. I wish I could stay here a week and a half as long as you'd keep feeding me.
Well, you stay here. I'll keep feeding you. Don't worry none about that. And we'd love to have you because you're a very entertaining man, too.
Well, thank you.
Well, I think if you're trying to make people laugh, and that I believe in very, very much.
And there you have it, another edited episode of one of the American Montage programs prepared for the UPI Radio Network back in the 1980s and 90s. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going with me this week. And check YouTube for more American Montage programs.